So week 12 of the NFL season had some wild upsets featuring some of the craziest down-to-the-wire games I've seen in quite a while. So I've got to talk about that and more as I take an in-depth dive into week 12 of the NFL season right after... All right, first up, we had a handful of down-to-the-wire games on Sunday, including some pretty crazy upsets. The first one we're going to talk about here was decided in overtime. The Vikings managed somehow to avoid disaster against the Bears after letting a late two-possession lead nearly slip away. They kicked a field goal to make it 27-16 with under 2 minutes to go, and that appeared to be the final blow. Yet, Chicago managed to march down the field, and Caleb Williams connected with Keenan Allen for this 1-yard touchdown and the 2-point conversion to DJ Moore to make it a 3-point game. Then, with 22 seconds left, the Bears recovered the onside kick after the ball bounced off of Johnny Munt's leg. And honestly, I don't know why he was up that far to begin with, but they get the ball back, and this 27-yard strike to DJ Moore set up a 48-yard field goal that Cairo Santos hit to send the game to overtime. Chicago got the ball to start it out, but Caleb Williams took a horrible sack here on 2nd and 9 that really killed their drive and forced them to punt it away. After getting sacked on 1st down, Sam Darnold kicked it into gear and started firing to all of his weapons. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones all caught passes on the final drive to set up the 29-yard game-winning field goal from John Parker Romo, Tony Romo's son. So the Vikings survived a late game scare and moved to 9-2 on the season, yet remain a half game behind the Lions, who are now 10-1. Meanwhile, the Bears fell to 4-7 after losing their 5th straight game. Yikes. Props to them for coming back at the end and nearly winning, but I knew it was going to be a long day when their first field goal attempt of the game was blocked. So, blocked the game-winning field goal last week, then first attempt this week gets blocked. Seriously, it's things like that that truly make me wonder if sports curses are real. I will say, though, I think the curse has been lifted from the Bears as far as franchise quarterbacks go, because I think Caleb Williams is that guy. Yes, they've been losing, but he looked pretty good in this game, and I think it's only up from here for Caleb Williams and possibly within the next couple of years, the Bears franchise. Speaking of sports curses being real, most likely real, I'm also starting to wonder how real the Washington Commanders are. I thought they were pretty real when they were just 7-2 a few weeks ago, but now they've lost 3 straight and are 7-5 after losing to the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys in insane fashion. To many people's shock, the Commanders were down 20-9 late in the 4th quarter, but they weren't dead yet as Jaden Daniels hit Zach Ertz for the score, then ran in the 2-point conversion to make it 20-17 with 3 minutes to go. Then on the following kickoff, Kevontae Turpin, he had trouble fielding it, grabbed it, stuck his foot in the ground, and did this spin move for a 99-yard touchdown. That man is freaking fast, and that quickly re-gave Dallas a 10-point lead. What a return. Watch it again. That is insane. One of the coolest returns I've ever seen. Anyway, the Commanders got into field goal range and opted to send the kicker out with 1 minute and 44 seconds left. He hit it from 51 to make it a 7-point game, with Washington needing the onside kick. Well, they did not get the onside kick. Basically, nobody ever does, but they did get the ball back after forcing Dallas to punt with around 40 seconds to go. Not super promising as they had no timeouts, but on the first play of the drive, Jaden Daniels rifled one down the sideline for Scary Terry, who weaved his way through the secondary and got in the end zone for an 86-yard touchdown. Absolutely unreal ending to this game. So out came Austin Siebert, the man who just hit it from 51. All he had to do was hit the extra point to likely send the game to overtime, but the snap was a bit low, and he missed it wide to the left. Then to add insult to injury, on the next onside attempt, Wanye Thomas caught it and went right through the middle for a touchdown. I mean, he probably should have just went down, but I'm sure as a special teams player, it's got to be hard to resist scoring a touchdown if you have the chance. So anyways, the Cowboys pull off the upset 34-26 and move to 4-7, while the Commanders, like I said, are now at 7-5. They're still the 7th seed for now, but Arizona is right there at 6-5, and even the Bucs, Rams, and 49ers aren't too far behind at 5-6. All right, the next game between the Texans and Titans also features a crucial missed field goal from short distance. But before we get to that, the Texans found themselves down 23-17 late in the 3rd, trying to piece together a drive. But CJ Stroud's struggles continue, and he threw one of his 2 picks on the day here to Kenneth Murray, which gave Tennessee excelente field goal position going the other way. But Just 3 plays later, Will Levis returned the favor by throwing a 65-yard pick six to Jimmy Ward. There's the Will Levis we all come to know and love. A 54-yard field goal then extended Houston's lead. But on the first play of the next drive, Will Levis found a wide-open Chig Okonkwo who ran right past the secondary for a 70-yard touchdown to re-give the Titans the lead, 30-27. The Texans put together a drive late in the fourth, getting down to the 10-yard line, but having to settle for 3. However, Kayami Fairbairn missed the 28-yard chip shot that would have tied the game, and the Titans were still up 30-27 with under 2 minutes to go. They went 3 and out, though, and had to punt it back, and on 3rd and 17 with Houston backed up to their own end zone, C.J. Stroud pulled a Dan Orlovsky and ran out of the back of the end zone. In his defense, his was much less embarrassing, and he did get sacked, whereas Orlovsky just ran a 5K down the white line. Anyway, that resulted in a safety and game over. Titans win 32-27 in quite the upset. Houston is definitely struggling. They've lost 4 out of their last 6, and this loss to the now 3-8 Titans might be a low point on the season. Thankfully for them, their division is not competitive, and the Colts also lost on Sunday and are still 2 games behind them. Our next way too close game was between the Chiefs and the Panthers. Good God. This short touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins gave KC a somewhat comfortable 27-16 lead late in the third, but Carolina responded with a field goal to make it a 3-point game. Then, late in the fourth, a PI call on Shamari Connor put the ball on the 1-yard line, and Chuba Hubbard punched in not only the touchdown, but the 2-point conversion as well to tie it up 27-all. That's when vintage Patrick Mahomes got activated, and he moved the chains with a couple throws to Kelsey and D-Hop before escaping the pocket and taking off up the left sideline for a 33-yard scramble to get all the way to Carolina's 22. A quick 10-ish yard pass to Kareem Hunt then got them even closer for the game-winning field goal, and Spencer Schrader, the man filling in for Harrison Butker while he is on IR, came through and drilled it from 31 yards out. He was perfect on the day, too, going 3 for 3 on field goals and 3 for 3 on extra points. Noah Gray also had his second game in a row with 2 touchdowns, and despite getting sacked 5 times, Mahomes was solid, throwing for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns. Definitely got to give some props to Bryce Young as well, though. He had 263 yards and a touchdown and really set his team up well against one of the best defenses in the NFL, though they are struggling right now. That's a whole different conversation for another day that I talked about on my other channel. However, I think social media might have imploded had the Chiefs lost to the Panthers and dropped 2 straight, but they got the bounce back win and remain atop the AFC at 10-1. Another AFC West team vying for a spot in the playoffs is the Denver Broncos. They moved 1 step closer to that goal after handling the Raiders 29-19 on Sunday. Bo Nix had another great game, going 25 of 42 for 273 yards and 2 tutties, both of which went to Courtland Sutton. He's definitely starting to come into his own, talking about Bo Nix. And this is actually really impressive. He just joined Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Patrick Mahomes as the only quarterbacks to have 20 or more touchdowns with 2 or fewer turnovers throughout a 10-game span within the last decade. So it looks like they've certainly got their franchise quarterback, while their counterpart in Las Vegas is still in search of theirs. We might be seeing Aidan O'Connell again this upcoming Friday. He's been out since week 7 with a fractured thumb, but could return from IR for the week 13 Black Friday game against the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to need him or someone because Gardner Minshew sadly exited Sunday's game with a broken collarbone, and he's out for the rest of the season. It's not the worst thing in the world for the Raiders to lose a bunch of games down the stretch, especially if they plan on drafting a quarterback in the first round, which I'm guessing would be their plan. If they want to bring someone else in for the remainder of the season, though, they could go and get the newly released Daniel Jones. Spotrac pointed out that Daniel Jones could sign with the team's practice squad so that he could be elevated for games, but also remain eligible to be signed to a contending team if one loses their quarterback down the stretch. It's an interesting idea and makes sense for both parties, though I believe Daniel Jones would probably prefer to go straight to a contender. Regardless, with Minshew out, if Aidan O'Connell isn't good to go, it's going to be the Desmond Ridder show during their Black Friday game at Arrowhead. Next up, the Lions keep making wins happen, and they reached their 10th win of the season on Sunday after breezing through the Colts 24-6. They leaned on their run game with Jahmyr Gibbs scoring 2 touchdowns and David Montgomery scoring another. Their defense then held Indy to under 270 yards and 0 touchdowns. Anthony Richardson was back to his inefficient self this week, completing just 11 of 28 passes for 172 yards. So the Lions get their 9th win in a row and remain the team to beat in the NFC, though they have division games left on their schedule, so things could get interesting in the NFC North with the Vikings nipping at their heels. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers spoiled Tommy DeVito's first start of the season by trouncing him 30-7. Baker was feeling himself after this touchdown run in the second quarter, put Tampa up 24-0, and he even taunted the crowd by hitting the Tommy DeVito dance, which I guess came off a little disrespectful, though after the game, Baker Mayfield said it was more of a tribute to DeVito. He's got a lot of swag, so you guys can decide if it was disrespectful or a tribute. I don't really care, but hey, when you outgain your opponent by over 200 yards and are blowing them out in just the second quarter, you can kind of do whatever you want. It was definitely a rough showing for old Tommy Cutlets. He was 21 of 31 for just 189 yards and took 4 sacks. It may be painful to watch for Giants fans, but you can rest assured knowing you'll probably have a top 3 pick and you can then draft your next Daniel Jones. Kidding. Something positive to note from this game was that Mike Evans made his return to the field after being sidelined with a hamstring injury since week 7. Tampa didn't need to throw the ball a ton, but he did lead the team in receiving yards with 68. He now has 403 yards on the year and needs 597 within the next 6 games to keep his 1,000-yard streak alive and tie Jerry Rice with the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. I don't know that it actually happens, but hey, it is not out of the realm of possibilities. The next game we got to talk about, it was also not particularly close. The Dolphins were hosting the Patriots on Sunday and took no time in asserting their dominance. At one point in the third quarter, they were up 31-0, though the Pats did score a couple touchdowns, including this 63-yard scoop and score to make things look a little more respectable. Tua was on point. He finished with 317 yards and 4 touchdowns while avoiding Tua turning the ball over. Jalen Waddle had his best game of the season, going off for 144 yards and a touchdown on 8 catches. Then believe it or not, but Miami is still in the playoff race with their now 5-6 record. It's an uphill climb for sure. They're still a couple of games behind the Broncos, but who knows? If they finish 5-1 in their last 6 games, they could potentially make the postseason at 10-7. They certainly look much better out there with Tua back, but we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Now, I'm very excited to see how the NFC West plays out because after these Week 12 games, we got a bit of a shakeup in terms of who is in first place. The 5-5 Seahawks took on the then 6-5 and division-leading Cardinals on Sunday. It really was a low-scoring game, with the only offensive touchdown coming at the end of the first half when Geno Smith connected with Jackson Smith and Jigba to give Seattle a 7-3 lead at the break. The kill shot for Arizona was this play, though. In the third quarter, the Cardinals were facing 4th and 1, and Kyler tried floating this one to Michael Wilson, but it sailed over his head and into the awaiting hands of Kobe Bryant, who returned it 69 nice yards to the house and hit him with the hold my nuts as he dove into the end zone. Those 2 touchdowns and a field goal were enough to get the job done as the defense stepped up big time and held Arizona's offense to just 6 points as they went 3 of 12 on third downs and were 0 for 2 in the red zone. And with that win, Seattle has a momentary lead in the NFC West as they're sitting at 6-5 with Arizona, but now have the head-to-head tiebreaker. The Niners are just 1 game behind, but probably have the bleakest immediate future with Brock Purdy's status moving forward still a little bit up in the air. He was out for what's been described as shoulder soreness. Pretty vague. I don't like that, but it appeared to be more serious than initial reports came out last week. He was at practice, had trouble even throwing a football without pain, left practice. But yesterday, Brock reportedly did some quote-unquote light throwing without issue, so maybe he will be fine for this week, though right now, it's just too early to tell. They could be another landing spot for Daniel Jones, but again, it depends on the severity of Purdy's injury. Anyway, with Purdy out, Brandon Allen was the man under center, and he, just like most of the offense, really struggled against that Green Bay defense. He was just 17 of 29 for 199 yards with a touchdown and 1 pick. They hardly got anything going on the ground. CMC had just 31 yards on 11 carries, and in total, their offense had 241 yards total. Meanwhile, Josh Jacobs carried the load for the Packers, rushing for 106 yards and 3 touchdowns en route to a 38-10 blowout win for Green Bay. It's not completely impossible for them to still win the NFC North. They'd have to catch Detroit at 10-1, which is easier said than done, but either way, they're likely going to occupy one of those wild card spots. And then, going back to the NFC West, the Rams, like the Niners, are now sitting at 5-6 after losing to the Eagles 37-20. Yeah, on Sunday Night Football, it was pretty bad. LA did not really stand a chance. They had to play one of the hottest teams in the NFL after all, the Philadelphia Eagles. They've won 6 consecutive games, at least heading into that one. And then they had to try and stop one of the hottest players in the NFL in Saquon Barkley. And as America saw on Sunday night, that is basically impossible. This man is a freaking monster, putting up Madden-esque video game numbers. So listen to this. He had 26 carries for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. I can't say that with a straight face. Then he had a few receptions as well, making his total yards from scrimmage 302 on the night. That is insane. And in case you're wondering, that is a new Eagles franchise record, talking about those 255 rushing yards, and is the 9th most rushing yards in a single game in NFL history. He leads the league in rushing with nearly 1,400 yards, with Derrick Henry pretty close behind in second, to be honest, but Saquon is currently on pace to finish the season with 2,150 rushing yards, which would be the most in NFL history. Basically, this man is special, and every time I see him play, I'm reminded that the Giants organization opted to let this man walk, but paid Daniel Jones. Now, Saquon is the best running back in the league for their division rival, who is 9-2, and Daniel Jones was just released after they fell to 2-8, and now they're 2-9. Times are certainly tough over there for not only the Giants, but another team in the Jets. But hey, I don't have much to say about the Jets right now. They were on their bye, so they didn't lose another game. We'll just put it that way. And finally, the Harbaugh Bowl featuring the Ravens and Chargers took place on Monday Night Football last night, and this game did not really disappoint, especially in the first 3-ish or so quarters. This touchdown heave to Rashad Bateman, then a Chargers field goal had things sitting at 14-13 going into halftime. The Ravens started to pull away in the fourth quarter, though, scoring touchdowns on back-to-back drives, with the first going to Mark Andrews and the second coming on an impressive 51-yard run by, no, it was not Derrick Henry, Justice Hill. The Chargers did score a touchdown with 46 seconds left, but it was too little too late, and the Ravens secured the win, 30-23 after recovering the onside kick. So, John gets the better of Jim and is now 3-0 against his younger brother in head-to-head matchups. And with the win, the 8-4 Ravens catapult the Chargers in the standings and hold on to the 5th seed, while the 7-4 Chargers are right behind them at 6. Coming into this game, Derrick Henry had scored at least 1 touchdown in the first 11 games of the season. The Chargers, though, had only allowed 3 rushing touchdowns all year, which was the fewest in the league, so something had to give in this one. Well, while King Henry did run for 140 yards on the night, he did not get into the end zone, and therefore the touchdown streak is over. They did give up 2 rushing touchdowns, but just not to Derrick Henry. And for the Chargers, J.K. Dobbins headed to the locker room before the half with a knee injury and did not return for the rest of the game. And as of when I'm recording this video on Tuesday, we don't know exactly what is going on with his knee or how severe it is, but obviously hoping for the best and that it's not something serious, because J.K. Dobbins is a man, even though he's a Charger, is somebody I'm rooting for because he's bounced back from injury after injury after injury and is having himself a great year. So there you go. Week 12 of the NFL season did not disappoint, so make sure to let me know in the comments down below some of the biggest takeaways you had from this week, as well as surprises and some of your favorite upsets. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.